Welcome back to Cosmic Comics. Today we look at Spawn, issue number 4, published in September of 1992. Dedicated to Joe Shuster, who is best known as the co-creator of Superman. Story, pencils, and inks by Todd McFarlane. Letters, Tom Orzechowski. Editor, Terry Fitzgerald. Color, Steve Orliff, Ruben Rude, and Ollie Optics. Questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how? They're all here. We get a one-page recap. The TLDR version is Al has had a rough week or so since returning from hell and has to face some harsh truths. After getting in a fight with Violator, his heart has been emotionally and physically ripped from his chest. I love the thumping, pumping of the heart. So awesome that this issue picks up right where the previous one left off. Even with his heart torn out, Al is ready to fight. Violator seems shocked by what is happening, surprised by Spawn's powers. Then he uses an interesting turn of phrase. When did humans begin to rate? What exactly is that referring to? It might be the necroplasm meter, or a designation within hell, or any number of things. Still, Violator seems surprised that Spawn doesn't need his heart, and this is when I should stop and say, as a longtime reader of Spawn, characters lie. We're talking about agents of hell here, or worse, agents of heaven. As Malebolge said last issue, morals are a luxury we are not granted. We'll soon learn that Violator is actually extremely familiar with Spawns, which means that there is a chance that all of this is just posturing. As far as we know, the Violator's job is still to scare Spawn. Violator acts upset that he doesn't appear to be more powerful than the Spawn and tosses the heart to the ground as he continues to complain about how this was supposed to be an easy assignment. The entire time, Al has just been standing in place, letting his hand glow. We get a necrometer reading of 8664 just before Al reaches down to reclaim his heart and reincorporate it back into his body. Spawn is still uncertain who is the mastermind behind his current predicament, but he's certain that the short guy works for him. Spawn has picked up on the fact that Violator seems to be upset that his boss has lied to Violator about this assignment. Granted that might not be the case, but it could also be that Violator is attempting to manipulate and reinforce Al's feelings of getting screwed over. My point being, Violator is not the most reliable character. Al catches on to the fact that Violator might also feel screwed over by his boss. One might think that this is the moment where he attempts to turn the villain to his side so they can work together. Nope. Al wants revenge for having his heart ripped out. We see Spawn let loose a bolt which strikes Violator and bursts out the other side. We're told the hole is the size of a bowling ball. As this happens, Spawn has questions. How can he repair a dismembered heart? Why does he even have such powers? When is all the madness going to end? Where does he go now that he has lost everything? Violator calls Spawn an idiot, claiming that he had the power long before Al stumbled upon it. This is interesting. Is Violator still talking about what took place in the deal, or something else? Is Violator talking about Al's necroplasm power? We just don't know. Violator comes in and tosses Spawn across the alley in classic comic book style. Finally, Violator lets loose a little bit of truth. He's here to keep the new Spawn in line, to make sure he doesn't stray, show him the ropes. The fact that a new Spawn needs a babysitter is an interesting admission. It means that a Spawn can stray, and what happens when they do? We'll later discover that Violator has acted in a guiding capacity for numerous Spawns, but we'll cover that role when it comes up. I only bring it up now because again he makes a show of mentioning how his boss is making a big deal out of this particular Hell Spawn, and Violator can't figure out why. Spawn strikes out with another bolt of necroplasm, but misses. The fight then breaks out into a full melee brawl, and we get this awesome shot of both Spawn and Violator's arms flying through the air after being ripped off. Who knows how many body parts they would have pulled off if somebody hadn't shown up to break up the fight, starting with a loud, "Enough." Malebolge has arrived. The first nugget of info he drops is interesting as he reminds both of them that neither Spawn nor Violator can die. He compares the three of them to a family, with him as the father and the two of them as jealous siblings. Malebolge exclaims that he controls the destiny and damnation of both of their lives. It's nice to see the tension broken up at the bottom of the page, Spawn telling Malebolge to go to hell, while Violator explains that he already has. It further reinforces the feeling of two kids being caught doing something wrong by an adult. And again, the scale of Spawn and Violator in comparison to Malebolge also makes them look a little childish. At the top of this panel, Malebolge refers to Spawn and Violator as vigor and humor, respectively. One might see this humor reference as the precursor or perhaps foreshadowing of Violator's other alias of Clown. Malebolge claims to have over 8 billion souls and explains that the accumulation of souls for the damned will someday lead to the destruction of God. And here Malebolge verifies that Al Simmons was indeed an atheist in life. Al's response to all this is, and again, I love the humor used to break the tension, when Al exclaims, "Jesus!" Malebolge replies, "Call him what you will. He is now your enemy." Malebolge claims that Al was given a choice. He claims that he doesn't have the power to turn people away from God. That might be true, but it's also not the full story. One example is Al. His family was groomed for generations for his role as a Spawn, and it raises serious questions as to how much choice, if any, Al ever had. And Malebolge, all caught up in his grandstanding, gives us a general outline as to what is actually going on. It's amazing how much of the story is tied into these next few lines, so I'm just going to read them verbatim. "My army of evil is not quite complete. I need billions more, for the forces of good are naturally quite strong. To ensure my eventual victory, though, I need agents to do my bidding. Your past human life made you the perfect candidate. Young, brash, destructive, ruthless, arrogant, and a hired killer. There's not too many of you around. As one of my agents, you needed powers to set you apart. That was simple, but I'd be a fool to make it limitless. You're wise enough to have sensed the draining of the power. If not, let me explain. The more you use your energy, the faster you come to a second death. The slower you use it, the less chance you have of stopping evil around you. Either way, I eventually end up owning your soul. The only choice you have is, how fast you willing to give it." A small grammatical error there, as I think maybe it's supposed to read, how fast are you willing to give it? The concept does get fleshed out a little bit more in the following page. Once Spawn uses his powers up, he'll go back to hell. But by not using his powers, he'll make himself more and more numb to the evil around him, as he has to justify not using those powers to help others. And if Spawn kills any bad guys, there's a good chance that those souls are going to hell, thus making Hell's army grow even larger, and creating a win-win-win scenario for Malebolge. In fact, Malebolge is such a nice guy, he gives Spawn a free arm so he doesn't have to waste any more of his power. Violator can't stand not getting the attention any longer and wants to know what he's going to get out of the deal. He then starts patting himself on his own back. Well, not literally, but he could, considering he's holding on to his own arm. Violator brags about killing the Mafia hitmen and making the cops think a serial killer was attacking organized crime. Violator continues complaining about Spawn's powers, about his arm, about the hole in his chest, until Malebolge can't take it anymore and calls for silence. Malebolge says Violator and those like him make the battle against God all the more laborious, and wonders aloud if there are traitors among the ranks of hell. There's some foreshadowing for you, and that's all I'm going to say about that. If you wonder why Violator looks so much like Malebolge, it's because he was created in Malebolge's image. His job is to watch the Spawn and prod him when needed. Malebolge is angry that Violator's actions against the Mafia have made the New York crime syndicates cautious, leading to a drop in illegal activities. Having taken on the role of daddy to this family of 3 previously in the issue, Malebolge now announces that Violator is grounded. Malebolge then twiddly-dinks out, leaving the twiddly-dink stars behind, while a shocked Violator discovers that he can no longer change forms. And while I'm talking about this big, happy family, Malebolge is, in some capacity, responsible for the creation of both Hellspawn and Violator. As such, he has marked both of his creations. The Spawn costume has a big M across Al's chest, and when in his human form, Violator has an M across his face, giving him his characteristic clown look. And here we are, an unlikely duo. I haven't mentioned that Image Comics t-shirt the clown is wearing yet. Well, now I have. Violator puts on a big show about how he killed all those Mafia guys to make the boss happy, but honestly, he was most likely just having fun. Violator knows that he's short, fat, and ugly. One might think that he chooses to look that way, but it's implied here that Malebolge chose this form for Violator. Spawn walked away last time, now it's Violator who turns to leave. The police show up to investigate the battle, but by the time they arrive, our combatants have long since left. Al steals a hat and trench coat to help maintain a low profile. I like the fact that the character feels bad about stealing the coat, calling himself a two-bit thief. Al wanders the streets, pondering his predicament, and when he hears two kids exclaim something about a new superhero, the two children rush in Al's directions to check out the hero, and Al looks a little bit shocked and worried, but it's not Al that they're after. It's another Image cross-promotional opportunity as the two young boys become enamored with Savage Dragon on the television screens, which quickly devolves into a conversation about who would win in a fight between Savage Dragon and Youngblood team member Bedrock, whose character name will soon be changed to Badrock after Hanna-Barbera sues to protect Fred Flintstone's hometown name. This cross-promotion is noteworthy because it goes both ways, and we see the same scene played out in Savage Dragon number 3. Pretty neat. Back at Wanda and Terry's house, Wanda wakes up from a nightmare in which she dreamed about Al. He had changed and was begging for help, but knew that Wanda couldn't help him. This made Al inside of her dream cry, and he is sad that she won't come over. Wanda alludes to the fact that this is a reoccurring problem, the nightmares, and Terry comes across as a super chill dude who takes everything in stride. There we go, Arc 1, questions. It was nice to get some answers this issue, but when it comes to questions, there are still so many. 4 issues in, and we haven't even started talking about Al's costume. If you like this series, please hit that like button and then hit that subscribe button for more comics and gaming related content. Thanks for watching Cosmic Comics. I'm out.